It is not hard to stand out, especially if you are a student. Secondary school, tertiary, whatever, it's not very hard to stand out. If you're new to the channel, I'm Dr. Justin. I'm a former medical doctor, now a full-time learning coach and learning consultant. And I've worked with a lot of students. And because of the nature of my work, a lot of the students come to me wanting to be excellent, do well on their exams, impress their friends, impress their parents, get a pat on the back, finally seek that parental approval. Anyway, all of those great things. There's a lot of misconception around what it takes to be, I guess, exceptional, to stand out from the crowd. And I want to tell you that it's not that hard if you do a few things. And hear me out, there's a good reason for this. A few years ago, I was hiring for a position at my previous company. I put out the ad and I got something like 100 applications. I shortlisted that and I interviewed around 30 people, 20 something people from all different types of backgrounds, a lot of students, a lot of new graduates. Of the almost 30 people that I interviewed, there were probably 2, maybe 3 that had more than just I went to uni, I did these papers, I was part of a club. There were very, very, very few applicants that did anything beyond what would be considered just the norm. The person I ended up hiring, I hired because simply they had done an internship, not even a very long one, not with anyone prestigious, not certainly a top tier, crazy internship, but they had some kind of experience and they had demonstrated that they were willing to go outside of just the prescribed norm. And then they actually went on, after working with me, to get a very prestigious job at a law firm because they then had even more experience with the work that they were doing with me. The bar is set low. And that's the reason why I'm telling you the story about this whole hiring process, because especially at a student level, most of the time, you're living a life where things are prescribed to you. Like your teachers tell you to do something, your lecturers give you things to do, you set exams, everything is fairly prescribed. There are not many people that are going outside of what is prescribed to demonstrate something additional about themselves. If everything that you have on your CV or your resume or what you think of as your profile is what everyone else that is at your age or at your stage would have, then from a recruiter or an employer or even from an assessor's point of view, there isn't anything special there. It's literally like that's just baseline of 0. And just doing well in the things that are prescribed to you, like it's great to do well in those things, but it's not really anything that's special. And you don't have to be applying like a crazy amount of effort. You don't have to restructure your entire life to try to reach those things. You can spend a small amount of effort to do just a few more little things that get you far separated from the average crowd. Like you don't have to be like the 16-year-old that set up your own company. You don't have to be the, whatever, like 14-year-old ambassador for National Geographic. Like you don't have to do the crazy thing. Like, yes, if you can do that, that's amazing. And you probably don't need to watch this video anyway. But if you're just like an average student doing your average life, doing average things, you don't have to be exceptional to appear exceptional. Let me give you a few tips and some things that you might not have considered that are very easy for you to do that would help you to separate yourself out from the crowd. First of all, try to be involved in some kind of project of some sort. It doesn't really even matter what it is, as long as it's not crazy. Like don't be part of the like shooting kittens association. Do something that people would think is like a relatively normal activity. You could have a hobby, you could be really into your sports, you could be into like instruments, orchestra, or a club at school, or at university, or debate team, or sumo wrestling. Whatever you really want to do. You don't have to even be good at it. But the idea here is that you want to demonstrate that you are the type of person that is willing to engage a little bit more than the bare minimum for something that you are interested in. And obviously there's going to be great skill development from doing stuff like that as well. The second thing is try to develop some level of self-awareness. And when I say self-awareness, I'm not talking about this like real hippie, just be more in line with your chakras, like sit so that your meridians are in tune. Like when I'm saying self-awareness, I'm just simply saying be aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and whether there is alignment there. and start making some small changes to those. Why am I talking about this? Number one, the obvious thing is that once you start being in tune to your processes and your intentions and whether they're aligned, you'll start being able to optimize a lot of things. Like a lot of things to do with studying and learning are frankly impossible to get better at unless you have that self-awareness. Like if you're doing badly in a subject or an exam, but you fundamentally do not know why, then the only natural conclusion that you'd have is that, well, I'm studying like everyone else. I'm studying the way that everyone tells me to study. I'm basically trying to copy success by doing what everyone else is doing. And I'm working very hard, which is also what everyone else is doing. Yet I'm not getting very good results. Well, that's also what's happening to most people. Like most people are not getting good results, right? It's just how statistics works. So the only conclusion you could make if you're doing the same thing and you're not looking at the effect that that process has is that, oh, I must be getting bad results because I'm just an idiot. The only logical conclusion would be, I am just not good at this subject, or I just cannot perform academically. I'm just not smart enough. And that belief is unnecessary. And it's usually untrue as well. What's better is for us to think about, well, what part of my method has led me to this result? And then we think about it in terms of, okay, well, let me just think about what Justin has recently told me, which is that if I just do the same thing as everyone, then I should expect the same thing as everyone. So if everyone is doing the same thing that this one student said that I should do, is everyone going to do as well as that one student? Like logically, the answer must be no. Therefore, there must be something else. And if we can just think about it to that level, then we open the door, maybe considering that there are other parts of the process. And I'm not going to get like too far into the research on this, but if you research on self-regulated learning or learner self-regulation and research on higher order learning, you will see that even when you have two students that are doing the exact same thing, what's going on in here could be different. And if what's going on in here is invisible to you, then you're going to be running blind. You're going to be trying to hit the finish line without even knowing where you are running towards. But as long as you're running, you just feel like, oh yes, running is what I need to do. Let's just keep running. But that's not the point. The point is not to just keep running. The point is to get to the finish line, right? So self-awareness means that you're starting to become aware of what you're doing, why you're intending on doing that, and whether that is actually getting you the result that you want it to get you. And if it's not, then thinking, okay, well, why might that be and how we can start changing that? Which leads me to the next thing, which is stop trying to just follow the most common tips and tricks around you. Again, that doesn't separate you from the crowd. Doing the most common tips and tricks that are out there makes you part of the crowd, not beyond the crowd. If you want to separate yourself from the crowd, you have to be doing things in a way that is different to the way that other people are doing it. And again, yes, just purely trying harder is going to be effective when you're around people that are not trying harder. Like if that is your unique value and no one else is trying harder, that's great. But if what you're trying to do is among people who are already trying harder, that again loses its unique value, right? Trying hard, having lots of effort, that's a good attribute. If you can do that, that's good. I consider myself a very hard worker as well. But it's not going to be enough, right? There's plenty of people that work harder than me. There's plenty of people that will probably always work harder than me. And I don't want to be the hardest worker. I just want to be the person that is able to do what I want to do. And that requires me to evaluate the method that I'm using, which doesn't involve just following the same tips and tricks that other people are using. Learning is not a social game where the way you win is to be part of the in crowd. Like, oh, the coolest kids use insert app here. Therefore, I should also I want to be like the cool kids by inserting app here. It's not a popularity contest. Learning and the outcomes from learning are a direct reflection of the processes that you use to try to achieve that outcome. If your processes are not aligned, your outcome will not be aligned. If your processes lead to a certain outcome, your outcome will be exactly as is predicted, which in many cases may not actually be very good. And the final thing is play the long game. Don't be impatient. And I understand the reason why people veer towards the tips and tricks because it's like an immediate solution. But if it was that easy, you'd probably already have solved it. And it wouldn't be such a big issue. Okay, I just want you to think about this for a moment. If the tip or the hack really worked that effectively, people would not have that problem. The simple tip is not going to help you there. But when we look for a very, very short-term solution, and therefore we forego a potential long-term solution, then we never fix the problem at its root. So that means that the version of you a week or a month or a year from now will be in the exact same position. Because here's what happens is, it's like, I have a problem right now, therefore I'm gonna use this tip. And I use that tip and it doesn't work. And then the version of you a week from now still has the same problem because you used the tip and it didn't work. So now all that's left is that you are now a person that used the tip that didn't work. Like nothing has changed. The position is still the same. You've still got the same problem. Whereas if you play the long game, for example, starting with the self-awareness and figuring out and mapping out your processes, then the same thing will happen for the first few weeks. You'll try things and they still won't work. But the version of you a few weeks from now, a month from now knows more about yourself, about what works and what doesn't work and why, which means that your next attempt is more likely to be successful. So as time goes on, you become in a better and better position to improve yourself. And you don't need other people's help as much anymore because you are in more control over how you can improve yourself to achieve your own outcomes. You become more independent, you become more empowered, and you have more control. And so if you follow these 4 guidelines, I suppose, you will stand out from the crowd. Experience more, challenge yourself, push yourself, do more things that just the people around you are not doing. Be used to being someone that does just a little bit more than the minimum. If you do just a little bit more than the minimum, you're gonna be 80% separated from the rest of the crowd because the majority of people do not do more than the bare minimum. And the second thing, develop a bit more of that self-awareness, that metacognition. Start mapping out and aligning intentions, outcomes, and processes. Number 3, stop looking for those tips and tricks. Don't rely on those tips and tricks because doing what is common makes you common. And number 4, don't be too short-sighted. Play the long game. Do the things that put you in a better position a week or a couple of weeks from now. Even if the short-term benefit is not there, at least you know that over time, you're gonna get better and better and better. And the result is guaranteed at that stage, rather than risking it every time with a short-term solution, which is kind of dependent on luck. And again, if it was really that amazing and if it was really that simple, you probably wouldn't have the issue in the first place. And even if you do use the tip or the trick, and even if you do go for the short-term solution, you can try it, but if it doesn't work, don't just keep trying it again and again. Like if you're gonna try it, sure, do it, but don't do it like for the whole year or like for multiple years. Like give it a go for maybe a couple of weeks or so, and if it's no good, just stop using it. You don't just have to keep doing it because everyone else keeps doing it. Everyone else is doing it because everyone keeps doing it. If everyone just stopped doing it, people would just stop doing it. It's just a FOMO effect. So anyway, those are just a few guidelines that I want to share with you. Go out there, apply these things. You're in more control than you realize, but not if you just keep doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, expecting things to, for some reason, to be different. If you want to be different, then it's not that hard. You just have to start acting a little bit differently, even just a little bit. And that makes a big difference. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. We'll catch you on the next one.